Thank you for being patient, everyone. It's Friday, and you are listening to the Cosmic Oracle Show.
There
This is
you go.
your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey. Thank you for listening in today. It's Friday. It's September 8th, 2017. We're getting our guest all lined up for you. It's going to be an exciting, kind of a laid back, and a very informative show. So just, kind of kick back, grab a coffee, grab some juice or whatever, and I think you're going to really like what we're bringing to you today. So thanks for listening in. You are listening to the Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And thank you for listening today, and for all of you that have given generously in the past. We do ask that you continue to give to our show because it's an all volunteer based show here and station. No one gets paid for anything. Everyone does it because we think what we're doing is important, and for you, the listeners, to hear what's going on, what's happening out there sometimes. And so thank you for being generous so much for the over 7 years now. And so today, if you can, go to freedomslips.com, find that support button and push it. We're just at the beginning of the week, and my producer, Patrick English, and my dear friend, he's the one who makes it all happen here and producing. And so where are we in our donations this week, Patrick? Okay, well, he's taking a look, I think, to find out what they are. I know I checked earlier.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry, I was muted. Out of a 2575 goal, we're at 690, which has us about on par except for one thing. And that thing is the $600 extra we need for the 2 new servers that's going to make Skype start acting like normal again.
Well, we need that. It's been very frustrating, right?
Ever since yesterday morning or the morning before, it's been a real circus.
Mm-hmm.
And need some new servers to correct this. And so actually we need a little bit, and we need like 32 something, 3275 or 3175 is what we need. And so please give. If everybody just gave $5, we would just be floating in it, and you still wouldn't be paying us. So please bear that in mind, and please consider donating. And to those who have given the $690, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for your support, and let's just keep it all happening here, okay? And so thank you in advance for your generosity. So I'd like to, before we get started, I have someone who sent me a gift, and her name is April. So I wanted to thank her. And what she sent was a stone. It's a crystal. It's called chalcopyrite. You know what that is, Patrick? Chalcopyrite.
I guess it's chalcedony and pyrite.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It looks, it's purple and blue, and it another name for it is a peacock stone. But I found out about it, and it's used for psychic perception. And so I thought the listeners might want to hear it because it was sent to me. I want to share that with all of our listeners today. And I'm probably saying it incorrectly, but chalcopyrite is a versatile stone for crystal healing and energy work, and it enhances inner knowing, and it strengthens perception and helps you trust what you see psychically. If you're going to work with psychic energy, it's good to trust what you see. Sometimes you can doubt it. So this is a good stone for helping you when you're beginning to turn on to your psychic abilities. It's also a protective stone, and it's good for many kinds of protection, including protection from illness. It's also good for Tai Chi, acupressure, acupuncture, and other practices that move Qi, because it helps move Qi and break up energy blockages. And it's used in crystal healing to align the body's cellular structure, eliminate toxins, promote hair growth, assist with healing bronchitis and other lung disorders, and helps heal and protect from highly infectious diseases, fevers, and inflammation. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. And with all the things it can do, it's just a really beautiful stone as well. So I want to thank thank April for sending that to me. I really appreciate it. So thank you, and April, for sending that. So now we'll go on, and I'll introduce you to two of our amazing people, John Polk, and John is an international metaphysical minister. He's a Reiki master teacher and a medium. In his book Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien, John adds his insights into ancient alien theory as a theologian.
There you go.
There I go, gosh. In the area of exo-spirituality, Reverend Polk is a psychic medium, making contact with ancestral spirits, aliens, and ghosts. He lived in Florida. He's now living in the Cottonwood, I think, area, and near Sedona, and works on writing and media projects and sharing his messages globally. So we'll go ahead and bring you on, John, if you want to say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome to the show. And what I really want to start with is part of the Cosmic Oracle show. We use some of the time here to talk about extraordinary experiences. And that can be anywhere from seeing a UFO to experiencing an extraterrestrial in your home or on the street, or working with something that's a little bit out of the normal 3D experience. And that can be from working with fairies or angels or spirit guides, out of body experiences, just kind of the whole gamut. I know a couple of weeks ago we had a wonderful visit from the Leprositis husband and wife team who did the Sasquatch convention up in Washington. And
Jack.
we learned a lot about that. There's so much to learn about it. But today I really want to focus with you, John, and we'll see where it goes, on the blue beings, the visitation at the UFO conference. And you can tell that story. Would you like to share that with us today?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. And before we do, then we'll invite your friend, whom I have never met, but just met recently, Toltec. And Toltec is an Earth human representative and emissary for the Andromeda Council, an intergalactic, interstellar, and interdimensional governance and development body of aligned, benevolent star systems and planets of sentient, intelligent life for worlds in both the Milky Way and Andromeda galaxies. In deep space, this organization is known by its ambassadors and diplomats as the Galactic Council, and he's been given the name Tolec as an Earth-based public persona name by the 5 people with whom he regularly communicates, who are stationed on the primary Andromeda Council biosphere. His Andromeda Council contact people indicate they've been in communication with him by various methods since age 5. So welcome to the show, Tolec.
Barbara, thank you. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. This is going to be wonderful. So we'll start, I think, with you, John, with your story. And Tolec, I think you can weave yours in a little. I have a feeling that we're all kind of sitting around a beautiful, first I saw a table, but now I'm seeing a beautiful fire. We can kind of all kick back, sit around the fire, and let's talk story.
Sounds good. John.
Okay, John.
Well, it's ironic that I saw online that you're a Leo also. So now there's 3 Leos on our panel.
Tolec, it's a Leo too. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's why the table turned into fire. Because
that's right.
Fire signs, man.
Better warn the rest of the world.
Yeah. But briefly too, John, I met you at Contact in the Desert for the first time this year. And the one thing I remembered about you, we only met for a few minutes, and I just remembered your beautiful gold lion that you wore on your chain, and that's how I remembered you when we were able to get together and talk.
You know, I've had this gold rope since I was 14 years old. I never take it off except to clean it. And then my mom gave me the gold lion as a perfect complement to the gold rope about 10 years ago. And they just synchronistically go together. There's tremendous energy from them. Sometimes when I meditate, I'll rub the lion and gain his fire, passionate energy, and it helps me to communicate with the other side. That's for sure.
Yeah. So it's definitely a totem for you, a amulet, or shall we say, a go-between place, a key. It's a key, a key to the doorways. There you go, John.
Or it's a womb of transformation and transportation into extra dimensional realms.
Okay, that works. That works.
Just made it up. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does.
Packs a lot of power, that's for sure.
So I understand that your experience was like September. I know it's a few years or 2 years ago in 2015, but it was a new story for me. I had never heard this story before. I know in reading about it that it's been through many different radio station talk shows, but it's the first time here on my show, and I'm really glad to be a part of this synchronicity of the blue beings.
Oh, me too. So whenever you're ready, buckle up because we're going to go on a ride.
Okay, let's start it. Let's start.
Okay, so August 28th of 2015, I'm the opening speaker at the Experiencers Speak 4 conference in Portland, Maine at the Fireside Inn. And what does Experiencers Speak imply? Well, I have mostly experiencers there. So as a metaphysical minister, what am I going to do? I'm going to conduct a seance to see if we can possibly invite, not summon, I don't like the word summon, but invite, ask permission for specific angels and extra dimensionals and perhaps ET to join us in our congregation. So I have everybody hold hands and I go into this guided meditation. And I say something to the effect, I'm going to paraphrase because it would take a long time, but I say something to the effect that, number one, who's an experiencer? Almost everybody rose their hand, except for a few scientists. And then I say, who here can see into extra dimensional realms and possibly even see ETs or extra dimensionals and or the spirit world? And a small number of hands went up, which really surprised me. And so we're holding hands, we're doing a breathing regimen, we're doing a chimney sweep of our chakras to clear us of any lower energy that could possibly be within our circle of light. And once I've done the protection first, which a lot of guided meditations, they don't do protection first, and I don't understand that. But we do the protection first. I invite them to join us in our congregation, more specifically, archangels, Gabriel, Raphael, Michael, and Enoch, who is also known as Metatron. And then I go out on a limb and I say, here is my goal. Before the end of my presentation or before the end of this conference, somebody is going to see something for the first time, or somebody that walks in multiple worlds, as do most of us here today, are going to see something unlike they've ever seen before. So first day expires, then the second day is unfolding and all the speakers were brilliant. And then who's the keynote speaker? Travis Walton, the most famous abductee perhaps in world history. And
I love him. I love that man.
yes. So you know how not always, but often the conferences are running behind or running late because the speakers are so good, and the MC feels guilty to try and cut them off, and so right as soon as Travis was about to play his new DVD, which he was traveling around the country promoting, 4 beings not of this planet walk into the conference room. 2 had blue skin. 1 had big black eyes and looked like Jason Martell, who's on Ancient Aliens quite a bit. And then the 4th one was maybe 4'11", bald, tight-fitting sunglasses, cut-off white T-shirt, blue jeans, moccasins, and a Fu Manchu that was curiously long. It must have been 6 or 7 inches long. No other hair on his face or his head. They walk in the room, and there was an apparent leader, and I'm going to call him Don. That was the name he gave us. And the reason he said, my name is Don, is he said, because you're not going to be able to pronounce my real name. And what I believe is that he didn't have an auditory name, that they're so advanced and so evolved that they have a vibration frequency signature, and that is their name. So anyway, he walks in, and imagine you have a book open, half the book in left palm, half the book in your right palm. He had money laying in his hand like that, which was kind of curious and weird. And he walks up to me out of everybody in the conference and says, "Are you the one we pay to see Travis?" And I say, no, let me go find Audrey Hewins, who puts on the conferences 5 years in a row. She wasn't able to do it this year. But so I find her twin sister, and her twin sister have been abductees since they were like 5 years old. And her twin sister, Debbie, in turn finds her sister, Audrey. And then Audrey, the lights are dimmed, so she pulls them into the light so she can see the money. And they didn't even have enough money. And then the two blue beings start arguing about the money, which was kind of curious. But they knew it was important. But when your currency is consciousness, you do not understand a primitive paper monetary system. They knew it was important, and they didn't even have enough money. So Audrey's like, she's a good soul. She's like, just give me 4 of these and we'll call it even. So then they walk up to Travis, and they start picking up his books, picking up his DVDs, and said something to the effect, hey, Travis, we came here to see you. And now it's soaking in on Travis, and it's also soaking in on Audrey. These guys have blue skin. So Audrey starts looking for telltale signs of body art or body paint. So she's looking, especially at the crow's feet around somebody's eyes. If you have paint on, it's going to eventually crack just because of your facial contortions. She didn't see any signs of that whatsoever. So then she starts looking at their hair follicles on their arms, because it will bunch and gather and get caught in the hair in your arms. Didn't see that either. So
was it a translucent kind of a blue, or was it a bright blue, or like a thin pigment of blue?
It was like a blue-gray.
A blue-gray.
It was like a blue-gray. There's a lot to the story, so I'll make it short. So
we have time. We have some time. It's okay.
Okay. I could sit us down for 3 hours and tell you this story, but I don't want to do that. Anyway, so then they eventually go and sit down, and they actually watch the DVD with us. Okay. And at this juncture, I wasn't picking up on anything. Audrey and Travis totally picked up on it, and they both blacked out, and they didn't remember anything until the next day. So they did the Jedi mind trick on both of them. Like immediately, once they knew that they had blue skin, they just did the whammy on them, which I have termed in my book, Yahweh, the Biblical God is an Alien, alien anesthesia. That's a term I coined, whatever. But they did that to them for obvious reasons. They didn't want them to remember, because they probably would have made a big deal out of it. Where experiencers speak, conference, all experiencers, you see ETs walk into your conference, you're going to want to talk to them. And anyway, so they sit down, we're watching the DVD, and when the DVD is over, and then there was a 45-minute question and answer time period. And once that was over, they get up and they walk up to me and they start talking to me. There's a lot to it, but I'll keep it short. They start talking to me, and then within 10 minutes or more, a crowd started to surround us. Now, the curious thing is that, there's many curious things, is that it took me probably 7 to 10 minutes for me to consciously acknowledge, absorb, and understand that there was 2 people there with blue skin. And then, so now it's all soaking in, and imagine this million-mile stare. I'm looking in Don's eyes. Don's looking in my eyes. Quantum entanglement. He can tell the exact second that I finally figured it out. And I believe he figured it out only because he allowed me to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm getting my cell phone, and I'm going to be rude and put it right in his face and start taking pictures. Right then, the one that I said looked like Jason Martell with the big black eyes, he walks around them and distracts me and pulls my attention away from them. Now, meanwhile, I have shaken Don's hand. I'm a toucher. It's appropriate. I touch people. I touch their hand. I touch their shoulder. You know, I don't ever touch anybody inappropriately, but I had touched this guy. He was that close to me the entire time that we were talking and when all the witnesses started to surround us. So the one that looks like Jason Martell, he walks in front of my table as I was selling my book, and he looks me in my eye, and I look him in his two big, black, dispassionate, lifeless black eyes with no whites in the or no, just two monster, just big black eyes. Never seen anything like it in my life. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and I knew something was completely unorthodox. And then he goes, "The Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki, the Anunnaki," and I kind of compare it to Rain Man, almost like he was autistic.
Is it like digital? Does it feel robotic? Kind of a robotic, or?
Well, you've heard of the star children with the black eyes. They only know a few phrases, and they're almost robotic in their movements, their actions, their voice and speech patterns. I can't be exactly sure what it was, but anyway, when he did that, I completely froze in my tracks and went into a state of paralysis. I did have some faculties about me. Like, I'm looking around, but I couldn't move my body. I could not lift my phone. I could not take any pictures. One of the key witnesses, Ron Sharfy, he's an IT guy out of New Jersey. He's gone on record and talked on shows with me about what happened. He was doing the videography. He had probably this, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000 digital camera doing the videography for the conference. And he's like, "Well, I got this camera in my hand. I'm going to take a video of these guys." And he froze also. A bunch of us froze. And then, so I'm looking at Don, and I'm about to say, "You have blue skin." And R. Keith Andrews, I don't know if you know who he is. He's on Spaced Out Radio the first Friday of every month with Dave Scott.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Dave Scott, great host, love him. But anyway, R. Keith Andrews, who was Psychic of the Year in Canada a number of years ago, walks up to them, and he's right next to me also, and he goes, "You have blue skin." And then Don looks back at him and he says, "Yes, I'm a shifter and I'm a healer." And he said, "Would you happen to be from the Pleiades?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And then he starts fielding all these questions. I won't go into all the questions because I want you to read the book, folks. But anyway, people are asking him questions, and people are going up and talking to him and touching him and hugging him. And so the other blue being was real tall, blondish hair, blue skin, parted on the side, looked kind of Aryan in appearance, except had blue skin. And he sees Don getting all loose and lathered up and comfortable. And he starts going, "Hey, we have to go. We have to go. We have to go now." So then they left, and nobody got a picture. We all blacked out. We all got frozen in time. And I've been on, I think, 162 shows now. Yours, I think, will be 162 shows talking about this. And a good question, and it's a very important journalistic question. How did people not take pictures? How did it not happen? There was a picture that was seen on Facebook, and then it was erased somehow. And what I try to explain to them is that you've never been abducted, so you wouldn't know. If you've been abducted, you'll completely understand how you can get frozen in time.
Sure.
By advanced ET. It's something, and I'm done with people saying, "Oh, it's all technology." I don't believe it was technology at all. I think it was something within their cerebral capacity that was very simple for them to do to us, remotely activate our pineal gland and basically render us, motionless in a state of paralysis. So anyway.
Did they talk to you telepathically, or did they move their mouth like we do, or?
They talked to you just as if you would talk to any other person.
Did they do a telepath at the same time, or show you, pictures? Do you remember?
I tell you what, when I was looking in Don's eyes and it finally dawned on me that he had blue skin, I could feel the quantum entanglement. It was very obvious that he picked up on my thoughts, and I could feel him releasing and allowing me to understand that, yeah, he was an extraterrestrial. There's over 20 witnesses to this event. A number of them have gone on record. A number of the witnesses believed it to be true. talked about it and will not talk about it anymore, including Travis Walton. His girlfriend at the time was Audrey Hewins, and they're not together anymore. But she's gone on record. She went on Jimmy Church's show with me, and we talked about it for 2.5 hours on Jimmy Church's show. And yeah, and Jimmy Church found out about it like a couple days after it happened. And so if you know his wife, Rita, you know, awesome wife to have, great producer for his show. Anyway, she knew about it also. They knew about it before I even knew that they knew who I even was. And so, yeah. And so, I'm on the phone with Rita, and she's like, well, we want to get you on the show. And I hear her say 6 months. And I'm like, well, all right. Hey, it's Jimmy Church's Fade to Black. I can wait 6 months. And then I hear Jimmy go, no, this week. So next thing you know, I'm on the show in 4 days. And that was on January 27th of last year.
Okay. So
Can I interrupt just for what it's worth? Dave Scott is on this station 5 nights a week.
I saw that. Yes, I saw that. So, yeah, okay. I know he's been bouncing around, but he's on the right network now. So
we're really happy to have him here.
Oh, he's awesome.
3 hours a night.
I've been on his show a couple times. He's a great interviewer. And then when you're done on the interview, he'll call you and just, you know, talk to you person to person after the show, you know, which I think is a nice personal touch. Anyway, great host. There's more to the story, but that's the crux of it. And it did happen, and I'm going to keep talking about it until I die. So there you go.
Well, okay, let's say a retrospect on that. So let's say it's been over a year. Is there anything that's popped up later? Have you been communicated?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to hear that. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I don't know. It was maybe 6 months later. I'm sitting on my front porch of my home, of my old home in Florida, I should say, and I'm meditating. And I'm meditating on him, and I'm meditating on them, and I'm meditating on what happened. I'm trying to go through it frame by frame in my mind and remember every nitpicky detail that I can possibly meticulously recall. And something tells me to look up, and I see a plane, and I'm like, okay, no big deal. I look back down, and then something literally grabs me by my head and pulls my head back up again. And I see a UFO flying right at this plane. The plane, you know, figure a commercial airliner goes 500 to 600 miles an hour, something like that. This object was going at least 4 to 5 times faster than it. And it looked like it was going to hit it in a midair collision. And at the very last second, it did a 180 and went backwards. So that was a UFO. And that was them communicating with me indirectly, if you will, that they were receiving my prayers and my energy and wanted to acknowledge that they received my communication.
And that you're still connected. There's still a connection.
Yeah, and I believe that they've taken me probably before the conference. I would have to assume before the conference they've taken me before, and they've done so after the conference as well. So this is interesting, is that Tolec and his sister Adana are very brilliant seers. They really, really are. Tolec is really good at it, and his sister, and he'll tell you this, is even better, Adana.
Yeah, I would like to, Tolec, being an emissary. Did we do good? You know, in this, when the beings come, the blue beings from the Pleiades, how did we do as a species, a human species? You know, we interacted with them. You know, how did we do? How do you think we did as far as we didn't run? We were able to handle it. We could have handled the truth. We could have handled the next steps in working and being with them.
Sure.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Just you know, in a cursory consideration of this, I think it's respectful and certainly almost even noble that a race that's on planet would be drawn to somebody who's coming to visit. I think it's commendable that John, you and the other people there were not scared. There was no fear going on at all. Now, you're at the right conference for this to happen, of course. But I was, this is the first time I heard the story in full. And I want to tell you, when I heard that this scenario happened in Portland, Maine, I mean, I'm from New England. Our family has land in Kennebunk. I'm like, Portland, Maine, 45 minutes north? I was like, what? Because the predominant places that have conferences like this, where there's the greatest notoriety and acceptance, and these subjects are talked about openly, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, California. But Portland, Maine? I was like, what? So I think, for a first time meeting that at least that we know of many years of ET visitors on planet, and everybody's like, hey, how are you? Yeah, come on over. Nice to meet you. You can't do much better than that. Yeah, at least you were welcoming. I mean, think of it that way.
Yeah. So maybe they could take the next steps. What would the next steps be? What would you see as the next steps they could take, Tolec?
Well, you asked that question from an interesting perspective, because even though I have this role of doing this work on planet, it's decidedly non-governmental. Mm-hmm. And yes, the Andromeda Council is a deep space, intergalactic, interstellar, and interdimensional, basically deep space UN. That's accurate. And they have 12 senior members, and they come from certain star systems and planets. When, as part of the protocols of first contact, when a race is ready, when a planet as a global society, and I'm not talking the one world order part, I'm talking about a world that has 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever races on it, that are ready to become part of a greater galactic human society, a cosmic society. It's only when that planet collectively reaches a place of peace. Mm-hmm. We're a long way from that point yet.
Well, we're getting there, hopefully.
Well, we are. But
we don't give up, though, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. So my first point is that we're not ready. We're more like, I don't know, 6th or 8th graders. We're still very much in grammar school when it comes to how we treat each other. Now, I'm not talking about, and there's no ego here. I'm not talking about people like us and people who attend these conferences who are generally very accepting of other people, have very open hearts, ask intelligent questions. There's a lot of global society in other parts of the world that still have far right religious tendencies and very, very, if for lack of a better word, conservative ways of living, and they don't understand any of this yet. Mm-hmm. It's at some time in our planet's future, after some significant events happen and the world has changed considerably, when we are finally a planet at peace, that's when open diplomatic relations will begin, and there will actually be an invite to what is known as not only the Galactic Council, but the Galactic Federation. And the Federation is the body that does all the day-to-day stuff, like manages trade, works out treaties, makes sure that one planet, if it needs certain plants and certain vegetables, that they get it, and other plants, other planets need other things. So it's all about facilitation. But I know that's a long way of saying, A, we're not there yet as a planet. B, when sometime within the next few years, there'll be a moment in time after a number of events have happened here on Earth, that there will be people who are, if you will, representatives, diplomats from the Andromeda Council that will be traveling all across Earth, meeting with people. They're not going to meet with governments. They're going to go and meet with people in small cities and towns, in the suburbs, They're not going to the Denvers, San Franciscos, LAs, Atlantas, and Chicagos of the world. They're going to small cities and communities, and they'll meet with people in town greens and parks, and they'll just have conversations like we're having today.
So you think part of it is that we're kind of, first of all, had to dream a new dream to actually wake up, open up, and say, you know what, let's create something different than what's been going on here.
Well, yeah, there's that aspect. There are a whole number of people that are waking up to the greater possibilities of what life can be like for each one of us, as well as just a better way of life altogether. There are all sorts of, and with no segue there, there are all sorts of institutions that are breaking down, that will continue to break down. There's a lot that will be happening in a relatively short period of time. And people's eyes, their minds will start to open. They'll also start to understand that those institutions that a lot of people respect and we call governments cannot and will not be able to help, as previously thought. Once those beliefs start to break down and the shackles are taken off of people's minds, there's going to be a real waking up. We're just starting that process now. I mean, the period of the early 90s through the mid 90s into the 2000s has been a big wake up period, but there's an equally big one that's ongoing right now.
Yeah, and part of that is waking up to being a part of a galactic federation or being part of a cosmic citizen, as opposed to just just to see that you're a human sometimes, right? And also to have an extraterrestrial, shall we say, perspective within a human body.
Oh, absolutely. You raise a good point. I was having a conversation with my primary contact, and this is a gentleman who's the guy responsible for not only the primary Andromeda Council biosphere, but all 12 of them that are in and around this solar system. There are 9 at the perimeter, and there are also 3 in and around Earth space. And this particular conversation was about how many people, now in this case I'm using people in terms of soul fractals, slices of souls, have been coming here to Earth. And the breakdown he gave me was the following. About 75% of those humans on Earth that are here today, they're fractal. They're the slice of their soul that wants to have an Earth human experience. They've been coming here and incarnating in human bodies. Incarnate equals birth from mom. For about 100,000 years. Some 75,000. I'm one of those. So think of this number. 3/4 of the people walking the planet are not from this planet. And the other, yeah.
You have to be acclimated to that, though, so your mind doesn't fold, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. and the other quarter are the ones that were here in the very, very, very early formative stages when they were forming the early proto-humans, and that it was still a higher dimensional world, and there was a lot of experimenting going on. Reptilians are master geneticists. There were people from Aldebaran, other star systems, insectoids, the people that Simon Parks talks about, were all part of the genetic formulation process. And then, of course, you've got, from a physical perspective, at least 5 or 6 different races of people that came from different star systems and formed colonies here, which is why Caucasian people look the way they do. They're from one area of space, predominantly Lyra. The panspermia that occurred, I don't know, 1 billion years ago came out of Lyra. A lot of those people went to the Pleiades. The people who we call Africans are originally from the Dogon star system. They're not from here.
Right.
People
That's
called
what,
Native Americans. And I'll just give this last one.
sure.
They're from the planet, which is my planet of my soul's home origin. And it's called Dakota. It's Dakota with an E on the end.
Yeah.
And they were the people that arrived in the South Pacific. They migrated up along the Asian coast, came across the Alaskan Strait, and they are predominantly all the people that we know as the Western Native Americans, west of the Rockies. Comanche, Apache, Cherokee, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, and a whole bunch more.
Hmm. Choctaw.
Choctaw, Shawnee, Pawnee. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, yeah, there's sometimes it hurts my head. And I'm not being, but when I think about all that I've learned over the past 6 years, it's been quite the education.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit too about um, when did you first wake up to all this, or have you known it? Like I think we said since 5. Did you actually have an awareness at 5, or were you felt that you didn't quite fit in what was going on, or
Mm.
were you in a home that said, it's okay to explore all of these sorts of things, or did you have a
Not
real
really.
human experience, where you're, you know,
No, I was I was raised in New England. we were we were meant to conform. You should.
aha.
You ought to. You need to. And my parents were wonderful. Now, um, I don't know if I've said this on air before. I think so. Um, when mom and dad first got married, for 3 or 4 years, they tried to have children. Many women, mom had female reproductive issues, and so at some point, mom and her OB-GYN said, "We're going to take them out. You're in too much pain. You're bleeding too much. This isn't working." And so mom and dad decided to adopt, and they adopted 4 kids, and I was the first of 4. Now, this is only interesting because a lot of people that I talk to, and I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of people I talk to at conferences that are contactees have been adopted and or come from military families and or have near-death experiences. I had a near-death experience at age 5. And so,
Okay. We want to talk about that after the break.
okay,
Okay.
sounds
But
good.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Alrighty. Just as a reference point, you won't get much from me because I don't remember it. They've been, and I need to correct myself, they've been communicating with me since age 5, but I had the near-death experience at 1.5 because the body that mom says she received, called me, was a very sickly little kid. And so she said, I gave you all this love and I fed you and I took care of you and all this other stuff. And she said, you're healthy today because of me. Thank you, mom. I love you. But she always says you were a very sickly young boy. And apparently at age 1.5, I had a near-death experience, and there's a new soul in this body that's working the body and has been since. But I don't have any recollection of that experience at all.
But you have a deep understanding of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It resonates. It feels right.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
without a question. You asked me another question that I would like to answer for you. So
Okay.
go ahead
Go
and
for it.
repeat that, please.
The one with I don't remember now. I went with you. I don't remember what the question was right at the moment.
Sorry. Well, I think it was about recollection of contact.
Oh,
And
yes.
the best place for me to go is there was an event in my life that was a marker, a major marker in my life. I had worked all along the northeastern seaboard from the lower coast of Maine all the way down to Delaware. Boston Turnpike, Mass Pike, Jersey Turnpike, New York Thruway, Garden State Parkway, and on and on. And although I had traveled quite a bit throughout the 80s, I got really tired of the claustrophobia, if you will, the density of the urban Northeast corridor. Of course, that leads down to the mid-Atlantic states. And I sat down one time and I went, I need to change a life. And so I literally pulled out a paper map of the U.S. I went through it, and I've been there, traveled there, worked there, traveled through it, vacationed there, and I came down to Colorado and Arizona, and I chose Arizona. I had I set up a number of meetings in Phoenix and Tucson. I received 2 job offers out of Phoenix and 1 out of Tucson, and I took the the Tucson job offer because I went to work for a big, tall, strapping Irishman who was just a character. And whenever we spoke and during a couple of interviews, he just had a warm smile and a hearty laugh. And I went, Tucson's a better city. It's a more beautiful community. And I'm going to work for this happy Irishman. That was easy. And so to fast forward, that was the winter of 91. In the summer of 93, I was contacted at somewhere around 3:33, 3:34 in the morning by a man whose voice I recognized as kind of like somebody that I would have gone to school with. It's like, hey, how you doing? Long time no see. You know, those people you know all your life.
Right.
And it can be 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years, 15 years, it doesn't matter. When they pick up the phone and call, you know exactly who it is.
Yeah. Right where you left off.
Right, exactly. So I recognized this voice. I didn't remember his name, but he didn't call me. He was speaking to me telepathically. And I had had some other experiences before then, but he basically said, I need you to get up. I need you to throw some clothes on. I'm like, dude, it's, like 24 in the morning. He's like, I know what time it is. I need you to get up, get in your vehicle, head down I-10, go to the area where the San Javier exit is. There'll be a dirt road on the right. Turn off the dirt road. You'll go about a third of a mile into the desert. You'll go over a little wash, and I'll be standing there with my craft. Okay, all right, fine. Get up, go to the bathroom, throw my clothes on, off I go. And there's a lot to this story, but suffice it to say that during the course of a week and a half, I took 3 separate trips back in time. So we would leave planet Earth. I felt motion in his craft. And if you looked at any of the photos from the Billy Meyer,
Yeah.
please,
Yeah, I love Billy Meyer.
kind of looked like a beam ship too. It had that kind of look to it. 35 to 40 feet in diameter on the outside, but when you walked inside, it looked like 125,
Right.
150 feet. I'm like, huh? I'm like, all right, fine. So I felt motion leaving the Earth's surface, but once we got into space, no motion at all. And we basically, he did his thing, he dialed in some numbers, and we went, and we jumped. We jumped from present day, late summer of 1993 to early summer in rural Kentucky or West Virginia in the 1840s.
Huh.
And over 3 trips, we observed a family of 4. A dad, 34 to 36 years old, a pretty wife, 24 to 26 years old, 2 kids, a son that was 9 or 10 and a daughter that was 3 or 4 years old. Blonde hair, pigtails, happy little young lady. And she was they had, of course, they're homesteading, they're out in the country. They've got this big farm, corn rows, barn, animals. She was playing with the animals. There was a fire that broke on the barn. She died from smoke inhalation. And we were limited on time. There are 2 other stories that have the same kind of significance as this one. And here's the significance. I turned to this man and I said, really? Out of all of the experiences that you wanted me to see in this awakening trip with you,
Right, this
me back in
omniverse.
time, right? You take me back in time to observe a beautiful family of 4 and watch their youngest child pass away. He's like, it's okay, she's all right. And here are the reasons. Here are the answers. Number 1, genetically, you are related to these people. I said, okay, fine. He said, number 2, there are going to be some things happening in the near future of your planet, which will be significant. And if we are going to be able to help assist you in the transition time during that period of difficulty and beyond, we need to better understand you and your overall emotional state. And as a metaphor, if they experience emotions in a very sort of balanced manner, say on a scale of 0 to 50, they're kind of like, I don't know, 20 to 35 maybe. Us, we're like 0 to 50. We're like the roller coaster.
Right.
Down.
Right. Up and
And he
down.
said, he said, we've known you for a long time. You've known us, and we could trust in that you would be honest and real with your experience, your expression of what is happening down here with this family. And as a result, see if you would like, you can stay and be a guide for them for the remaining time on planet. Because the father, he was crushed. He'd lost his little girl. And it was, to this day, it's always had an impact on me when I think of the concept of a parent losing their child. It's probably the most horrific thing.
It would have to be. It would absolutely have to be. It was. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't bear it. No, I don't know anyone that can. It's got to be the worst. You're right.
So the result of that series of events, those 3 trips, at the end of the 3rd trip, he told me all of this, and he presented me with the red pill, blue pill scenario. And he said, one pills, you can stay and be a guide for these folks. And the other pill, you can go back to planet Earth and continue to live your life. And so here I am. I'm back. And that was the defining moment that really changed my life, because I had been on I was working in the healthcare software industry. By that time, I was on a couple of management teams of smaller companies, and suit, coat, and tie every day, And after that event, my life went far left.
Yeah, out the door.
Yeah, gone. Gone. And I'm different. I believe that I'm a better person because of that experience. But he contacted me again in 2010, September of 10.
Can we hear that story? We're about to stop for a break.
I sensed it was coming. Absolutely. Absolutely. Not a problem.
So we can hear that when we get back.
Sure.
And I'd also like to hear what John is, whatever John would like to talk about. Leave you some space there, John, what you think it's important for the listeners to hear right now. I would like to talk about an event that John's going to be in, and I'm going to be there, and hopefully I'll meet you there, Tolec. That's coming up in October, the Awareness Expo, and we'd like to talk about the event that you have coming up also, Tolec, in the Arizona area. Is it Sedona or?
Yes and yes, and I'll explain.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So go ahead and stay tuned, everyone. Get your questions. I'm not sure if we'll be able to take callers. I'll have to ask Patrick, our producer, about that. We've been having some trouble with the line, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that. But
we should be able to if they won't. We'll find out.
Okay. So stay tuned, everyone. Hold on to your seats, and we'll be right back. This is your host, Barbara Jean Lindsey. Welcome back to the Cosmic Oracle Show. We're really happy to have our wonderful, what would you call these amazing men on the show today, and light beings and teachers and wonderful storytellers. With each of you have such beautiful voices. I'm sure our listeners are enjoying what's come across and into their lives at this point, and right directly into their heart. So we have Reverend John Marcus Polk, is an international metaphysical minister, and we also have Tolec Ducote is an emissary for the Andromeda Council, and we will be speaking with them and talking to them. We'll be continuing our stories, and we want to thank you, all of our listeners, for being generous so far this month, and we're pretty much on target. But if you could go ahead and look into those pockets and find some cash or a PayPal credit, and give us $5 $5, $10, whatever you have to keep us on the air, and even $1 helps. Whatever you can afford, we really appreciate it, and thank you for your support. And so just go to freedomslips.com, find that donate button, and support us any way that you can. So thank you in advance. Okay, so we ended before the break with Tolec telling his story, the September 2010. We were in 2010, but I think we're going to just hold it there for a moment, if you don't mind, Tolec, and we'll go back to Reverend John. We haven't had a chance to see anything for a little bit. I just want to hear what's going on with you and what you'd like to talk to our listeners about.
Okay, so the last question you asked me was, have you been in contact with them again? And so, yeah, on multiple occasions. So I used to live in Orlando, Florida, sold my house, moved to Sedona. That's a whole show in itself to tell that story. But a couple years ago, no, not even a couple years ago, I think maybe 6 to 8 months after the event that happened at the UFO conference, I go to a MUFON meeting in Central Florida, and who is there? A number of people that were at the conference where the Blue Beings were, and I'm not going to use their names, but all the MUFONers will not talk about it, and it pains me that they won't. I'm not going to go into reasons why I think that they won't, but they just won't, and I believe it or not, I understand it. Mm-hmm. Let me go back and do a disclaimer that, Travis Walton does not want to talk about it. So it begs many questions. Why? Why? He's on this tour still promoting his DVD, of course, trying to sell it. So why would he not want to promote this Blue Being story? And a couple answers of speculation come to my mind. Number one, the ETs might have blocked him. Number two, maybe he's blocking himself. Maybe it's his own God self that's blocking him. Or maybe it's because he just doesn't want to go through all the public scrutiny again. I mean, he had death threats back in the day. And so I completely respect him for not talking about it.
It's almost like he would go off target, is what I'm getting from a psychic perspective, that he has his story, and it's so important to just stay with that. Sometimes it's so hard to be taken off to different things. I have a feeling that he's just to stay on that target, and he's done such a fine job of that maybe he's supposed to just stay with that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. So I'm at this MUFON meeting, and who do I run into? I run into Audrey Hewins. Remember, she's the one who put on these Starborn Support International and the Experiencer Speak conferences. I run into her mother, and so I deliberately got there early so that I could talk. And first person I see when I walk in the room was her. And I walked up to her. The first thing I talked to her about is the Blue Beings. And she told me a story that I did not know, that one of the speakers at the conference, and I'll leave him nameless because this involves his kid, but one of the speakers at the Experiencer Speak 4 conference, she said that his son was swimming in the pool and was about to miss his father's presentation. And according to this kid, the Blue Beings went up to him at the pool before any of this started and said, "Hey, you need to get out of the pool. Your dad's about to speak." And I couldn't believe that. I didn't hear anything about that at all, but she was telling me, and I'm looking at her in her eyes, and she wasn't making it up. So then that night, I'm like, whenever I'm around a lot of experiencers, that's often when I see UFOs. So I'm like, I'm going to go outside and star watch, which is one of my favorite things to do. So I'm outside, I'm star watching. It's a clear night. Next thing I know, I black out. Next thing I know after that, I wake up on my couch, and I had just had a dream about who? About the Blue Beings. And my front door was wide open. The air conditioning was turned down. The house was in perfect order, which is what I do before I go to bed. Any dishes, stuff like that. All that was done. I don't remember doing any of it. But just prior to that, I had a dream about Travis Walton. And in the dream, Travis Walton comes up to me and he says, "If you know how to phase your mitochondrial DNA, you can in effect change your DNA and thus shapeshift. So I have a dream about the blue beings, and then I have a dream about mitochondrial DNA. What are you kidding me? I mean, who has dreams about mitochondrial DNA and phasing it so that you can alter your DNA and in effect shapeshift?
Huh.
Yeah, and so
Can you tell our listeners what that is when you say that, Michael?
Mitochondrial DNA.
Yeah, yes.
Nuclear DNA comes from the man. Mitochondrial DNA comes from the mother. So you figure if DNA is a part of shapeshifting, and you have to think that it probably is, would it come from the male? No, I would think it would come from the female. But anyway, that was the dream. I dream about the blue beings, and then I dream about that with Travis Walton explaining to me how to phase mitochondrial DNA so that you can shapeshift. And then I wake up and my front door was open. It freaked me out. So I'm running around the house trying to figure out, you know, did somebody break into my house? But prior to that, the last thing I can remember before I blacked out is there was drones and aerial surveillance in place over my house. And bear in mind, I lived right in the middle of the city. I lived in a residential area, but there's houses all around me. I lived on a corner, so I have all these neighbors everywhere. And, you know, I see all these low-flying drones over my house. I see low-flying white Cessnas with no catalog numbers on them from the FAA. So it was clear that there was some kind of ops in progress, and they were there to do research and diagnostics on my abduction that they knew was coming. And I talked to Tolec off air about this earlier today, and I said, they were privy to the timeline. That's how they had to have known. Think about it. They were there before I got abducted. How would they know? How would they know? Well, they knew because they were privy to the timeline. That's why they set up.
You didn't know. You didn't even
know. No, I did not know. I kind of figured something might happen because, like I said, when I spend a lot of time around experiencers and abductees, often something happens. Mm-hmm. And it's usually in the way of me seeing a UFO, if not getting taken. And that absolutely happened that particular day. And I know if I didn't go to the MUFON meeting, none of it would have happened.
Yep, that makes it such a specific dream. It's not like, you know, it's just very specific for Travis Walton to come and say that to you. It's just, it doesn't happen very. I don't think anyone else has had that dream.
Yeah, I mean, who dreams about mitochondrial DNA?
Right.
Really?
You do that every night, right, John?
Yes, if not the nuclear DNA or
transposons,
yeah. Which are jumping genes, you know.
Right.
Chromatophores, which are used for camouflage and reptilians and stuff like that. That also can be played into shapeshifting if you want to come up with a physical, scientific, and anatomical explanation for shapeshifting. Those are, you know, transposons, the jumping genes. Can't be exactly sure how they did it, but when Don said in front of all these witnesses, I'm a shifter and I'm a healer from the Pleiades, you know, and then I see Audrey Hewan's mom at the MUFON meeting. And what was really cool about the MUFON meeting is Kathy Martin and Denise Stoner. They do a lot of work with experiencers. They've been in MUFON forever. Two nice ladies. They both live in Central Florida. They're going to get nailed by this hurricane. God bless them. But they were conducting the meeting. And you know, at first we were doing a study on the Exeter case up in New England, which is a fascinating case study in itself. And then about halfway through it, they're like, all right, everybody turn your chairs, let's create a circle, and let's just have an open discussion. And that was like, that's a great touch. So we did that, and I'm looking around the room, and I can see people's auras. I can't necessarily read them that well, but I can definitely see people's auras. I can see their angels that are connected to them. And who had the brightest angels around her was Nancy Hewan's, Audrey Hewan's mom. I couldn't help but notice it, and I had to mention it at the meeting because I saw it. You know, for the most part, everybody had some beautiful light coming off of them, but she had the most powerful light. So, you know, yeah, Audrey's very much an experiencer, abductee, but, you know, being an abductee runs in family lines. And I never asked her mother personally, but you got to figure it all started with mom, you know?
Mm-hmm. And she passed that on to Audrey.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately for Audrey, she can't bear children because of what was done to her. Um, so that's unfortunate. I wouldn't say it if I didn't hear her talk about it on television because that's kind of personal and private. But
Mm,
she's her and her sister have been on TV multiple times talking about it, and they've been lifelong abductees just like myself.
mhm. And you're right. From what I've read and talked with people, that a lot of people that have come on the show, that it does run in families, and a lot of times you're not to talk about it unless, like for us, the ones that are kind of breaking things open and shaking things up. It's kind of our job in some ways to. It's not comfortable, but let's just put it on the table and let's talk about it. And I did that, with my family, and they start telling stories, and then the truth comes out, and you are given permission to talk about it, and then own it and have it, and then work it. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, so let me tell you how I ran into Tolec. Keith Anthony Blanchard, who has a show called Center of Light, great host. I've had him on my show before. He's a really good interview. Janet Lesson, and you know Janet, of course.
I do.
One day she calls me and says, "Hey, John, can you find us a guest?" And I'm like, "Probably." So I call my contacts, and it was such short notice I couldn't really drum up any guests. So I call Keith, and he's like, Tolec, and it turns out that Tolec knows Janet and has been on her show before. So we interview him on the 27th of January of this year, and show went really well. And he's like, "I'll do it on one condition, that my sister Adana comes." I'm like,
Mhm.
"Sure, of course." So they do readings on us during the show, to find out where our star families originate from. And okay, they both told me. So Tolek and Adana both told me Andromeda. And then
Huh?
At the UFO Congress, Misha Johnston, we all know
Uh,
Misha Johnston, uh,
Sure.
she told me the same thing. And
Huh?
then another lovely lady named Sandy Mack, who lives here in Sedona somewhere. I got to figure out where her store is. She has a store out here somewhere. She told me the same thing. And I'm
Hmm.
telling Tolek, well, when four psychic mediums tell you the same thing, you got to figure that they're probably 100% accurate. So listen up. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so then I knew he had moved here because Shakina Rose, who you actually were interviewing her, and she was interviewing you on my show on Wednesday.
Hmm. Hmm.
She told me that Tolek had moved from Florida to be here. She had moved from Florida to be here. And then I have now moved here from Florida to be here. And I knew he lived around here somewhere. I wasn't exactly sure. And I'm at this pizza place. There's this cool pizza place I can walk to from my house. It takes 90 seconds to get there. And I'm at this restaurant with this guy named Natesh, who plays guitar, and he's really good, but he doesn't really sing. He chants, and he has this like ancient universal language that he chants in. And then when you listen to it, you can feel it affecting your DNA. Like
Hmm.
it provokes some kind of DNA activation, which is really cool. Anyway, but I meet him at a party that Shakina took me to, and I'm like, "Hey man, come up to the pizza place." He lives right down the street, and I'm like, "I'll buy you a piece of pizza. Let's hang out." So we're there and we're talking, and Tolek happens to be sitting right next to us, and I didn't even know it. And so I'm talking about the Arcturians being seventh dimensional, and Tolek's like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I gotta jump in." So he jumps in. He's like, "They're actually ninth dimensional." And so then we start talking and hanging out, and then the next thing I know, I invite them both over to my house, and show them this house that I'm living in right now, and we hit it off really good. And then I was telling Tolek earlier today, I said, "I'm going to get a regression done this Tuesday because I want to know the answers more than anything else, but about the blue beings, and just
Hmm.
find out what's happening to me. I need answers and I need closure." And he said, "I'll tell you what. What's your name, your full name, where were you born, your date of birth, and some other pedigree information, so that Adana and him can do a reading on me, okay, and then compare notes with the lady who's going to do the hypnotic regression on me on Tuesday." And he's like, "I'm not going to tell you anything until you get your regression done first, and then we
Right.
can compare notes to see, you know, if we're accurate or not, or we'll find a lot out by doing both of these." And I had to completely agree with him. And this was his idea. I never thought of it. Sounds like a good idea to me. So I'm really, overly anxious to find out some answers here.
Yeah, well, because that's what happens when you want the information, you want the truth. So you want to go find that. If you're Andromeda, I'd be reading everything I could about it, you know. But then you get to do even better is have a regression, and then a reading would just be. So those are the tools that can help you then take all your next steps, like boom, boom, boom. You know, it's awesome.
Well, and I
And
had a number of people try, and nobody could crack the code. And I was interviewing on my drive out here. I stopped in New Mexico to stay with my editor and publicist Karen Christine Patrick and her boyfriend, research partner Brett Collins Shepard, who are experts on lunar and Mars anomalies. They're a brilliant interview if you've never interviewed them before.
mm,
So,
mm,
but they are very close friends with former Apollo astronaut trainer Ken Johnston, who was best friends with Dr. Edgar Mitchell back in the day. And so Eric Johnson, one of my producers for my show, he drove from the Archuleta Mesa, where he knew the Jicarilla Apache Indians, and they took him on a tour. And he's like, dude, I'm only 3 hours from you, so I'll go to Karen and Brett's house too. So we're there, and then the whole plan is to wake up the next morning and interview Ken. Interview Ken Johnston. And that interview went over really good. And he started talking about Dr. Sasha Lesson, Janet's husband, doing a regression on him. And he had the same problem. Nobody could crack his code either. And he said, what it is you have implanted, embedded keywords or trigger mechanisms that can unlock that door that opens up into a hallway full of doors that you never knew existed. And I'm like, that actually made more sense to me than anything anybody else has said about why it has not worked, because I've been frustrated, spent a bunch of money on it, and only one person got through a little bit, and that was it.
Well, and now it's about timing too. You're ready for it now. You're really ready.
Yes. So,
And it's all
good point.
lining up. It's
so
all
who blocked them from cracking my code? It was me.
Yeah, yeah.
I blocked them from cracking the code because my soul was not evolved yet enough to be able to even handle it and fathom what's going to happen to my soul shifting, So
It'll be interesting. It'll be really, really wonderful to hear. You'll have to come back on and tell us what happened, of course.
yeah,
And
I'm dying to know myself.
hey, can you let our listeners know how to contact you?
Absolutely. My books, Yahweh the Biblical God is an Alien, and The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, are both available via paperback, via ebook at johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK, johnpolkmedia.com. You can friend me on Facebook at Marcus Polk, Twitter at Reverend Polk, and also my show at QH Matrix. At QH Matrix. If you want to email me, you can do that at jpolk2 at CFL, like Central Florida, .rr, like roadrunner.com. Once again, that's jpolk2 at CFL.rr.com.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then, well, so Tolec, have you started to kind of get some ideas about John let's say we'll go to your 2010, but before we do that, so with John, let's say you're going to do a psychic reading, what's that like to start that? Let's say when you go to look at someone, and is it usually with your sister and you together, or do you do it separately?
I'm glad that you're asking the question. Without equivocation, this topic that we're talking about, and I need to give credit where credit is due. Yes, when Adana and I were speaking about John, we looked at each other and we went, Andromeda. Now, that's true. Now, having said that, I'm going to provide, okay, we'll just call it what it is. I'll provide a promotional public service announcement regarding her. She is an amazing woman. She was born stone deaf, without mixing any words. Stone deaf. She can't hear unless she has her 2 hearing aids in. Because she was born deaf, like many other people, there are other gifts that are heightened. And at, I think it's age 12, when her grandmother passed away, her grandmother started to speak with her telepathically. And she has been telepathic ever since. In 1987, she thought while watching a thunder and lightning storm, watching from her home in the greater Houston, Texas area, she said, "Creator, I'd like for you to show me. I'd like to see the wonders of the heavens." A craft shows up. They beam her up. She's on board craft for quite a while. She's, and I need to rewind for a moment. Apparently she was picked up at a much younger age when she was a little girl. And the gentleman who was the commander of that craft said, "You have to go back now. And you're not going to remember this, but someday in the future, when we contact you again, you will know who we are." And that was the 1987 incident when they picked her up. She's been highly, completely conscious, telepathic ever since. Now me, I need some quiet time. I'll go lay down in my room, turn the lights off, and just kind of get quiet and focus. But her, it's like picking up the phone and dialing. And so, to be clear, what she does is she'll, like John said exactly, she'll get the name of the person, the real name of the person at birth, where they were born, when they were born, the date. She will also get from that person their current living address. That's it. And Adana will basically pick up the phone, if you will, as a metaphor, and she'll speak with Azar, who's the chief medical officer of all 6 Andromeda Council biospheres. Why? Because Azar has all of the soul fractal records, of all people on Earth.
Huh, that makes sense.
And so she says, "Okay, Azar, I need a basic report on this person." And so she'll find out home star system, home planet, name, constellation. That's a basic report. For a premium report, home star system, home planet, constellation, as we would see it from Earth sky, who that person is, why they're here on Earth in detail, what is coming, to some degree, what is coming for them, what is not only their life's purpose on Earth, but what do they do in the different dimensions. Now, what I've learned is that, interestingly enough, many people have written back to her. So I created starancestry.com for Adana in November of 16. She had been taking care of her father for 9 out of 10 straight years. And she's like, "Brother, it's time for me to come out of the shadows and to speak again." She hadn't spoken since like the 1980s. And I said, "Well, Ancestry.com is doing really, really well." This is a true story. I said, you have always had this gift of easily and openly, consciously communicating with our higher dimensional family members and friends in the heavens. How about if we call it Star Ancestry? She's like, "What a good idea." Bang. Got on the web, bought the name, built the website. She was up and live providing reports within 2 days. I think she had 5 or 6 clients in 2 days. November of 2016. We're now at September of 2017. 512 clients from 28 countries around the world.
Love it.
And realistically, 99% of the people. And what that means is there are only 2 people that have either called or written back to her going, this information doesn't quite feel right.
Yeah.
2 people.
You always gotta have a couple of those.
Yeah, 2 people out of 512.
That's fantastic.
So, and it's a gift. It's something that she does really, really well. So people can find her at starancestry.com, and they can write to her at star_ancestry@hotmail.com. And yes, as friends, maybe old friends of this man we know as John Polk, Adana's doing her thing. She's going to get the information. She's going to get a complete bio, star origin, ancestry profile on John, and we're going to find out who they are, what's going on, why it's been happening, and help to the best degree we can. And so sometime late next week, we'll have that conversation with John after he gets regressed. And we'll see what matches up. But this is Donna's work. It's her passion. It's something she does really, really well.
Yeah, that's what she's supposed to do. That's what you came
Right.
here to do. Yeah.
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 And I've seen the transformation in her since she's been doing this work. She's a much happier person. And her family members back in the Houston area are now taking care of Dad. They're kicking and screaming, but they're doing the work.
Well, she paid her dues, so now she gets to do this.
That's right.
And it works. It's helping serve humanity in a huge way.
Hey, I've got a story.
Okay,
alignment
let's
with
go.
John. John,
Okay.
I'm going to tell all of us a story.
Okay.
So Donna and I are in Southwest Texas in the Big Bend area in the summer and autumn of 2013. And I look at the schedule. I'm like, hey, Ruben and Noe are going to be doing their UFO Border Zone Festival down in Presidio. It's like 45-minute drive from us. You want to go? She's like, yeah, sure, of course. It's Southwest Texas. There's not much going on there. So we go down. We contacted. Actually, Donna wrote to Noe, let him know that we were coming down. And it's Saturday afternoon at around 2:30, 2:45. Lloyd Pye is making what was probably one of his last presentations.
Oh.
Yeah, he passed in like February,
Yeah.
March of the next year.
Oh, you're so lucky to see him.
Yeah, we introduced ourselves during the conference after and spoke with Lloyd, and he was just a warm gentleman, just a real gentleman. So we're sitting there in the audience of all of these people, and within the first quarter of Lloyd Pye's presentation, there's a tall man who walks in like he had walked off the set of Guardians of the Galaxy.
I love that movie.
And he's not Groot, all right? And he's not little Groot. He's the opposite of little Groot. To describe him physically, a tall man about 6'2" or 3, not overly tall, but tall, slim, in a two-piece contemporary motorcycle riding outfit. Not Harley styled, but a slick contemporary jacket and pants, black leather boots. Again, contemporary, not Harley style.
Mm-hmm.
He is mocha cream colored, and he has a very, very close haircut. His ears are very small, very, very small. And he sits about 2 people to the left of us. And I look at Donna, and she looks at him. We look at each other, and we go, Arcturian? She's like, yep. He sat there and Travis was there. I talked to Travis at that conference. So this gentleman sat there through the end of Lloyd's presentation. And right before Lloyd finishes, like 3 or 4 minutes before, he picks up his helmet, tucks down his jacket, zips it up, like from Star Trek. He goes, zip, zips up his jacket, turns around, he walks out. Never saw him again. I was looking at Donna going, we got to go talk to this guy. And he disappears.
Probably felt it.
He was there for one reason, and that's likely because he knew that it was going to be Lloyd's last presentation. Now, that's an extrapolation on my part, but that's why he was there. He walked in for Lloyd's presentation. So that's my, we got an ET story for
That's
you.
a great story. That's wonderful. I love it. Can you tell our listeners about your conference coming up?
Sure. I've been working my tail off on this thing.
And maybe, Yeah,
Sure.
and
Go ahead.
maybe what gave you how did it happen? Did it just come in a thought? Or did it come in meditation?
Ah,
How were you inspired to, because it's
okay.
a lot of work, okay?
Like,
It's not about making money at all.
I
So
know
it's, you
I know
know,
two Jewish words.
okay.
I wasn't raised. I was raised Catholic. I knew two Jewish words. One is
Okay.
oi, and the other one is mushug, which means crazy. Um, so, as a matter of fact, when I was wrapping up my first conference that I produced, having to do with this genre, I've been in the corporate, had been in the corporate world for years, and was responsible for seminars, workshops, special events, trade shows. I'd done a lot of that before, but the first time I'd done it on my own with some volunteer help. October of last year, I held the 2016 Transformational Shift Conference in Tucson. And toward the end of the conference, I'm like, this has been great. I'm never doing this again. Right. And
Yeah.
so this year I planned probably 12 or 13 events, and I'll probably end up holding about 9 of them by the time I'm done. So I went from I'm never going to do this again to
Hey, it's what I do.
yeah. So and for that first one, just a small plug. I had people come in from all across the U.S., from the L.A. area all the way to New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Ohio, all over the country, and people from 6 or 7 different countries: Italy, uh, Spain, Netherlands, England, Canada, and of course Mexico. They just drove up from across the border for my first conference. Between the attendees, the people speaking, and the volunteers, we had just about 200 people. I had a number of Native Americans that spoke of their heritage and their knowledge regarding life on this planet and what is coming during this time of transition. And it included at least 4 or 5 people that comprise the top speakers for the Star Knowledge conferences. So this year I said, well, I'm leaving Florida. My sister's taking care of mom. She's all set now, and I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it differently. I'll be living in the greater Sedona area, and we'll give it a name. So I chose a weekend, ended up being the weekend of the autumnal equinox. And so this year's conference is the 2017 Autumnal Equinox Celebration, the weekend of September the 22nd through the 24th. And the lead gentleman who wasn't able to make it last year is my keynote speaker this year, and that's Golden Light Eagle.
Yeah, we've had him on the show before. I love him, and
Yeah.
I can see her face, but I don't remember her name that works with him.
Grandmother Silver Star.
Yeah.
She was at my conference last year. God bless her, man. Just a work of force, nature in motion. It's amazing how much she was able to get accomplished with as little sleep she had. And Atasha, do you know Atasha Tashina?
Yeah, I haven't met her, but we talked back and forth. She came on the show with Chief Golden Eagle.
Oh, okay, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, beautiful in so many ways.
Most of her DNA, she's had a DNA analysis done of her physicality. 80% of her physicality is off-world. It's not Earth human.
Where did
Yeah.
she get that? Where did she get that taken? Is there a place you can have that?
I don't know which lab did the work, but essentially what they came back and said was like, we don't get this. There are all of the known DNA markers on this planet from all the different physicalities, whether it's Asia or Europe or Celtic, etc. Ireland, right? Scandinavia, all of those, Nordic. She only had about 20%, and part of that is Native American Apache, which in fact is derived from Dakota. The other 80%, there were no markers. There were no Earth markers for that 80% of her physicality.
Well, that's amazing in itself.
Yeah.
It fits her though when you see her and talk with her. It fits, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Kathy Wilcotts, Dakota from the Cheyenne River Reservation was there. Pete Jackson from the Gila River Pima people in Maricopa County, he was there. It was an amazing conference. So I said, I'm going to do it differently this year. I'm going to be moving to the Sedona area. I'll do a conference in the Sedona area. And so this one is Native American inspired, and it will also have some other people like David Still, and he's the, if you will, the male contemporary counterpart to Mary Rodwell from Australia. David is finishing his third book of a series called It's Our Planet 2, and he'll be speaking from a conference.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'd like to hear that one already.
Bear Cloud from Bear Cloud Gallery. His people are they're from an area really close to Lakota. So I spoke Lakota to him, and he acknowledged and responded back to me. James Gilliand.
Yeah, we've had James on the show too.
James will be there. Grandmother Star Laughing Fox. She's a medicine woman from the Wolf Clan of the Cherokee Nation. Shakina Rose. Suzanne Ross, Supernatural Sedona, just some great people. John will be there. He'll get a formal introduction to people. So he'll get to meet probably around 80 or 90 people on that weekend. And on Saturday, we'll be holding it 2 days. The bookends are Friday and Sunday down at the Sedona Community Center in West Sedona, located just off of Harmony Lane. For people that speak Arizona, that's State Road 89A, heading right into West Sedona. The middle day, Saturday, we're going to be holding it up here on a mesa overlooking all of the Verde Valley with the red rocks of Sedona off in the distance. And parenthetically, it's like having the views of the Grand Canyon below you. That's kind of what it's like, with some cottonwood trees thrown in. And there's a piece of land to the southeast of us on that same piece of land up on the mesa, which was retained crushed red rock, and it's big enough for a medicine circle. So it's going to be an amazing day, and it's going to be an amazing weekend. Javier, who is holding his conference in October, will be here as well. And we had a new speaker sign up, John Tenayuka, a good friend of Javier's. John is a Tolec Mayan shaman who goes back 19 generations to the Black Jaguar lineage.
Yeah, I know John really well.
Okay, so John just signed with us like 3 weeks ago, so he said he hasn't spoken publicly in years about what he knows. So he'll be speaking, and I could go on, but it's going to be a great event. Realistically, I probably have somewhere between 12 to 14 tickets left. And if people are interested in learning more, they potentially want to attend, they can go to the transformationalshiftevents.com website, read about it at USA Special Events page, or buy tickets on the tickets page. And it's with all of these Native American people and the confluence of amazing speakers, I'm blessed. I'm really, really blessed.
Oh, yeah. If they come forward to speak, it's if you want a relationship with the earth, they're the best teachers. They have the most wisdom with that to show you the way.
Yep. And if you don't have plans that weekend, come on out.
I'll just might.
Give you a guest pass and you come join us.
I just might do that.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for the invite. I
So
appreciate
thanks
that.
for allowing the 5 to 7 minutes to provide that.
No, it's good. That's what our show's about. We want to let people know what's going on out there, and that sometimes we get talking and we forget that they don't have to know anything to come to these events either. If they're brand new and just have a desire, that's all that's needed to show up. They don't have to talk any talk or do anything, and I think we forget that sometimes. And I want to...
You raise a good point, and to that end, except for Friday, the opening day, because we just won't have the time, the other 2 days, both Saturday and Sunday, around 4:30 in the afternoon of both days, we'll have all of the speakers with speaker slots who want to participate, as well as other people coming in, like Kim Hicks, Sierra Neblina, Don Daniels, and Debbie Solaris, all of the Galactic U Radio Network in Colorado. They're all coming over. So all those people and any of the speakers will be sitting in on a panel, and we'll just sit and have this interactive discussion between us and the attendees, people.
Oh, I love that. Like a Q&A, they can just stand up and...
Just a wide open Q&A so that people
love
have
that.
access to it. Yeah.
That's so important.
Great.
That's a brilliant idea. I love that. Well, I wish you the best in your conference, and you're welcome. And people, if they want to get a hold of you personally, do you have a personal website, or they can just get to you at the conference website?
Yeah, the best one is this email, transformational_shift_events@hotmail.com.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just thrilled to have both of you on, Reverend John. I'm going to be seeing you, Reverend John Polk, in Sedona. It's a Sedona show today, and we might as well end it with talking about the Awareness Life Expo also coming up October. It'll be October 13th, 14th, and 15th, and John will be speaking there, and I also will be speaking there, and it's the theme is lifting consciousness, expanding awareness to the heart frequency conference. And we have Victor Camacho will be he's been spending some time in Mexico, and he will be bringing some artifacts that will rock your world. Last time he brought some, but now he has some more that they're just amazing. And we also have some scientific proof that hasn't been talked about before that will be coming about in this conference, and also bringing us hopefully to a step closer to disclosure. We'll be talking about that. And so we're going to have Mary Rodwell coming from Australia. So she will be at this conference. We have Brad Olson, who I just adore, will be there. And I'll just go through it. We have Ray Hernandez from Free will be speaking. And I met Lynn Caston for the first time at Javier's last conference at the Awareness Center. He is a brilliant man, and I just love his book. And so he will be speaking again. And we have Clifford Mahudi will be speaking. You probably know Clifford.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have Illumina Rose Ferguson from Australia. We have some Australia people, a strong foothold into the Awareness Center. And and we have Sherry Wild. And so she will be talking about her experience as a contactee. And then we have John D'Souza with his work, and Shakina Rose. And so we have quite a world-class group of people that will be speaking and doing workshops as well. And John Polk, you're going to be doing an angel healing workshop?
Not exactly, but what I do is I can teach people how to see their angels, and if they can't see them, I can teach them how to feel their angels. Like every roommate I've ever had and every woman that's ever lived in my home, they all could do it, just by being around me, and not even me so much teaching them how to do it. So it's something that it's not my gift. But it was given to me on loan for this lifetime to teach and to share. So I look forward to it.
That'll be wonderful. So you can go to awarenesslifeexpo.net. That's awarenesslifeexpo.net and sign up, get your 3-day pass. And it should be a really exciting event. And we'll be just talking all about UFO and contact phenomena, and how our extraterrestrial contact can transform your life in a very positive way, So,
and for the people driving in, whereas our event is taking place on 260. It's actually the same road.
Hmm.
John Javier will be there. Javier's event is taking place also on State Road 260. It's on First Street, FIR, in Cottonwood.
Right, right.
And
Just,
go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. It's on 1802 East First Street.
Yeah, just either, depending on which direction you're coming in from, south or north, it's either left or right. You go about, I don't know, 200 or 300 feet, and it's on the right-hand side, across the street from a grammar school.
Right, a big school there. So
A
we
big
have the
school. Yeah. Yeah, so I think Javier's going to get permission to do the parking there. So
right.
we'll be there this weekend. We're having a small gathering.
Oh, you are. Oh, that's
Yeah, it's a small,
fantastic.
small local.
It's just going to be one of those places where he had the concept and the idea and really stayed with it, and then everyone's kind of coming together to support him and support the awareness center and then get the support of the community and then branch out to, all the states, and then the whole world can come there and it can be a beacon of light there. So you're
Yeah.
doing that. John's been doing that. We're all about everyone coming together and connecting and exchanging information. And I see that some of the changes really turning on to our own healing capacity to share that, we can just heal ourselves so beautifully. And just by being next to the next person, kind of like the Kalahari Kun, where they get their noom up, that we all kind of power up. I know they talk about the UFOs powering up, but I see that when people get together and come together with a shared intention and focus and vision, that we all power up and become just so much more than what we were when we first started. So it's pretty beautiful. So you get a healing just by showing up, basically. That's all you have to do. So I welcome everyone to come to these events and check out your local events wherever you are in the world. And don't be isolated, don't be alone, but take that chance, get out of that comfort zone, and go meet up with someone and talk about your events or something that's happened to you, your story, or if you have some questions. It's getting more and more common for people to get together and talk about these sorts of things. And the future of the planet depends on that. So that's all.
Yeah, and Barbara, you raised some really good issues, and the key one that I took away from what you just said is that these events, whether it's a conference or one-day event, and in my early years, I was fortunate enough, because I moved to Tucson, to attend conferences all throughout Arizona. And what I'm trying to say is, inclusive of my last conference last year, what happens is people come in from either around the world or across the country, and these people start to just introduce themselves and talk to each other and share stories. And there are all sorts of new friendships that are started because of events like this that you can't get when you sit in front of your computer and listen to a webinar. Being out there and meeting people like yourself and sharing these stories is probably the biggest grace that you can receive from being at these events in person.
That's true. It's worth the effort. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I want to thank everyone for being on the show. Thanks to the listeners. And you've been listening to the Cosmic Oracle Show. You can reach me at barbarajeanlindsey.com. That's BarbaraJeanLindsey.com. We also have the Cosmic Oracle Show on Facebook. Check in. You can see what's going to be coming on Fridays. I'm here every Friday. I've been doing this on our third year, Patrick and I, and we love what we do here, and it's kind of growing and changing. As we started out at the beginning, it's fun to see where this is going to go, because this is you're the listener, this is your show. And so I love when you contact me, and you can do that on Facebook with a private message. And thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Patrick.
Oh, you're very welcome, Barbara.
And would you like to talk about your show Patrick not only is a producer, but he also has an amazing show every Thursday.
Well, it's not for public consumption with Patrick English, and it's at noon on Studio A.
And that's just at freedomslips.com. And go ahead and give and donate and go to those conferences. And I guess so. How about a last word, Reverend John, for everyone?
Yes, if you can attend one or both of these conferences, they will both expand your soul exponentially. So did we mention Suzanne Ross? I believe she's going to be at both conferences, actually.
Yes.
And then is Mary Rodwell? She's going to be at both conferences also, isn't she?
No.
Okay.
While we are in Australia doing our conferences in October, she will be up here doing her conference with you
Really?
guys. Yeah, it's kind of funny. We just traded places.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, Mary's an amazing lady, and you guys are blessed to have her.
I'm so excited. We've talked so many times, and she did a beautiful testimonial on my book and that's how we kind of met. I had her read my book, see what she thought, and I had talked back and forth. So we've talked back and forth for, I don't know, a couple of years now, but never met each other. So I'm really excited to pick her up at the airport and give her a big hug and we'll just start talking, I'm sure we won't have any trouble with that, with the talking part.
Yeah, give her a hug for me. She and I have been talking a lot this year, and I think the world of her. She's an amazing woman.
Oh, I will for sure. And for all the listeners, the last thing I'm getting with this is that it's a heart connection. And we'll just kind of get out of our minds, throw the mind away for a little while, and just drop down into that heart connection and kind of view the world from that space. And that's just a good medicine for the weekend or for the week. Try it out, see how you like it, and try it on for size. But you can just kind of, I'll show you as spirit, you can just drop down into that heart. And in that heart section, view the world from there. It's a beautiful place to sit and be and expand and just sit, not even expand. It's just kind of sit in that for a while and just be in that. It's really juicy and it's sweet, and sometimes we get so busy we forget to do that. So that's the medicine for the weekend. And until next week, thanks again, Reverend John Polk, and thank you again, Tolec Dakota, and thank you, Patrick. Love to everyone.
You're very welcome, Barbara. See you all later.
Bye-bye.